This is the Veritable Veteran Podcast, bringing truth and exposure to the struggles veterans and their families face post-military. Depression, anger, PTSD, suicide. Who am I? What do I do now? Hey guys, so I'm super excited about this week's episode. We've got Ethan on, and he's a very open and honest individual about his experiences and his mental health struggles. So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to this episode. That being said, if you want to be on the show, go to theveritable.veteran.com and fill out the podcast guest form, and we'll get you on the show and you can share your stories, and hopefully we can help some more people through your story. So again, if you want to do that, go to theveritable.veteran.com and fill out the podcast form. All right, guys, enjoy the episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Veritable Veteran Podcast. I'm glad to be back with you guys. We're finally getting back into the swing of things, getting consistently putting out episodes every week. So this week, I've got Ethan Beck. He's a 4-year Army veteran. He was a 25 Charlie radio operator, and he's here to tell us his story about, his time in service and his transition out of service. So, Ethan, welcome to the show. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so like you said, my name is Ethan Beck. I did 4 years in the Army, enlisted right out of high school. Little bit about me. I grew up in Indiana. Dad was a Army vet as well. So I just kind of knew from a very early age that I wanted to serve. And then, fast forward a little bit through some life experiences. My adopted mom is also an Army vet, and that's really what pushed me towards joining the Army, and went and talked to a recruiter. Mom and Dad signed the waiver, and off I went.
So did you join at 17 or 8? Yeah. As if they signed the waiver yet?
Yeah, I joined at 17. So I actually turned 18 in basic training. Thank you, drill sergeant, for all those push-ups I did.
Right? Like, thanks. Yeah, I needed that. Just a little bit of extra motivation for my 18th birthday.
Right.
So you had your father was he active duty at all while you were?
He was a guardsman,
younger, or was he? Okay.
Active duty guardsman. I don't remember exactly what unit it is, but he fell under Cyclone Division for the Indiana National Guard. Driving trucks for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he'd been doing that since late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Then your adopted mom, you said she was an Army veteran as well. Was she ever active duty, or was she just a veteran? Well, okay. Go ahead.
She was active duty. Also late 80s into I want to say late 90s or early 80s into the late 90s. She was a active duty military police officer.
Okay.
So she was stationed out of Fort Ord, California. Did a stint with 10th Mountain in Somalia for Operation Restore Hope, and then got out shortly before Desert Storm and early Gulf War kicked off.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So you joined the Army, and then what did you get into? What made you? Did you want to be a radio operator, or was that something that you just kind of got pushed into?
I kind of got pushed into it because I was impatient. I originally wanted to be a combat engineer. But like I said, I was impatient. My ASVAB score wasn't high enough for combat engineers, but I had an airborne and option 40 contract for Ranger School. And I was like, heck yeah, I want to be an airborne ranger. So I signed that contract, and, airborne school didn't pan out, and neither did Ranger School. and
Now, why
that's
was that?
okay.
Why didn't
Uh,
that pan out?
so one, I wasn't physically fit enough for airborne school, um, you know, and that's fine. But with failing airborne school, canceled out my option 40 contract. Um, but I got to help out, in the midst of all that, I got to help out with the airborne school and see kind of a little bit of the ranger school side of it,
Yeah.
with like pre-rasp and all those guys. And if you've never heard the pre-rasp candidates in the morning do PT, that's something that like YouTube it.
Yeah.
It'll give you chills. These guys are like the most motivated, high speed guys that
Yeah.
there are.
Yeah. And they're
Um,
waiting for Ranger School. Is that what they're waiting on?
yeah, so they're doing.
Yeah.
So you've got like pre-rasp, and then you've got your ranger assessment selection process. So
Okay. Yeah.
pre-rasp is literally just to get you physically ready for the assessment side.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
So
Yeah. So those guys are just getting hazed every single day.
basically,
I mean, they may
um,
like it, but it's still, they're just getting destroyed.
right. And I got put in a holdover company at Benning and met a whole slew of really cool people. I still remember our HHC NCO, Sergeant Tanner. He was this big, tall, redheaded guy. And, he's trying to guide all these Joes that are now discouraged because, oh, well, I didn't make the cut for this or I didn't make the cut for that. And he's like, look, he's like, I didn't make the cut for all this either. And look at me. He's like, I'm 6'4". I'm built like a freight train. He's like, but it led me to other places in my career. So it was kind of cool, shout out to him wherever he's
Yeah.
at nowadays.
Right.
Um, for
I
guiding
was
all
going to
the,
ask, like, that just how that affected you, you know, and how it affected your outlook on your career.
it was really discouraging and disheartening because, you know, I had been talking to my brother who was also in the guard. Even though I was active duty side, and he's like, yeah, man, like you got this, you'll kill it. And I was like, I know, like I'm gonna be an airborne ranger. Like this is what I want to do. And then to not be like to have that reality slap you in the face that, hey, you're not ready for this.
Right.
Um, at the time, 18-year-old kid, it's just like, well, am I ever gonna be good enough to do anything else?
Yeah.
So it kind of sowed a little bit of that doubt of, if I can't do this, what else can't I do? But I mean, you live and you learn.
Hmm.
Um, and I moved on. I got sent to Fort Bliss for the First Armored Division, um, which is where I spent the majority of my time. I did a couple
Yeah.
TDYs here and there for training, and once when I was getting ready to get out, uh, which I'll cover a little bit later if we have time.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah.
so it was it was a big learning experience and a big humbling experience to, all right, where am I going to go next? Like
Right.
what is my path from here on? So
Yeah. I mean, I had when it was back in 2009. I had gone on a deployment in late 2008 or early 2009, I think it was, when Obama went to Ghana, and we floated across on a flat top LHD, and it was only about a 30-day thing. We floated there, we were there for a couple days, and then we floated back. And the reason we did is we brought all the CH-53 helicopters for him to fly his press around and all of his, big wigs and all that other stuff. So we were over there, and I was training for MARSOC because I wanted to get into MARSOC at the time. So I was training really hard. I was running, I was doing, all kinds of PT. Like I was in really good shape. Came home from that deployment, and I don't know, maybe not even a month later, I got the iliotibial band friction syndrome in your leg on the outside of my right knee. And I mean, it just locked up and it was bad. I couldn't run to save my life and I could barely walk fast, you know?
Mhm.
So that kind of put a hold on everything. And then, it was super discouraging because I was like, great, I just spent all this time training, and now I can't even, I'm going to have to wait. And it's just one of those things that the only thing you can do is basically take anti-inflammatory, antihistamine pills and wait. It's just a waiting game.
Yeah.
And I suck at waiting. I hate waiting for anything. That's one of my biggest flaws. I'm so impatient. So, and I waited for a while and then I ended up meeting my wife shortly thereafter, the lady who is my wife now. And I met her and then we hit it off and then we just started really, growing closer together. And then I was like, do I really want to do this? And then I kept training for it. And then I had to re-enlist and I had to decide if I was going to go into recon or just regular infantry or if I was going to be able to do MARSOC. So it was all kinds. It was a big mess. But that to say, I was super discouraged by my injury.
Mhm.
But had I not gotten injured, I wouldn't have met my wife, because I would have been gone at assessment and selection. And, you know, I don't know, my life would have been quite a bit different. So, and that's not to say that, it was obviously a good thing that you didn't make it through Ranger School. It's just from my perspective, I had something similar, but you know, it ended up working out for the best. And,
Right.
so it's one of those things that it's super frustrating and it sucks at the time, but I honestly believe that, God has a plan and he knows what he's doing, and as much as it's, frustrating and painful, sometimes we got to just let go and, you know, accept that, there's things we can't change,
Right.
unfortunately, and sometimes we just have to learn to accept it. And that's one of the hardest things in life is just learning to accept the things you can't change.
Right.
So,
And, very similar to your experience, if I had gone through all that, I would have never ended up at Fort Bliss and, you know, met the guy that would be one of my best friends for years to come. And through him, I wouldn't have met my wife.
yeah.
So, call it divine intervention.
Yeah. Yep. I think
Um,
it's, I don't think there's coincidence. I really don't. I don't think there is. Um, and I've seen a lot in my life, just where seemingly bad things have happened and then good has come out of it.
right.
So, but anyway, go ahead, back to your story. So,
So, get through HHC, get new orders cut for Fort Bliss. Um, and I get to Fort Bliss in early 2015. Um, and link up with this guy at in processing. Um, and there's have you ever like met people that you just instantly hit it off with?
yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it was kind of a similar instance. I had left my phone on my desk for in processing to go get something to drink from the vending machine. And I come back and he's reset my lock screen to his face.
Like, of
Um,
course.
right, as Joes do,
Right.
um,
You shouldn't have left your phone unattended.
anywhere. And I was like, all right, man, like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah. All
And
right. All right. I see how it is.
yeah, and we started hanging out like every weekend after that. And that went on for, I mean, years. Um, you know, he was from Iowa. That's how I actually met my wife. That's how I ended up here in Iowa.
Yeah.
Um, and again, going into the transition out story, which will come later. Um, but I had that great friendship. And like I said, we spent every weekend together. He was one of the coolest guys that I'd ever met. Um, and had some pretty cool experiences at Fort Bliss. I was with Charlie Company 127 of the 1st Armored Division Combat Aviation Brigade. And our job
Now
was to
hold on.
provide.
Now hold on. Let me. This is for my curiosity here.
Uh,
You're at a First Armored Division. You're at the First Armored Division, but you're in combat aviation. So
uh,
explain that a little bit.
so we're a tank division,
Yep.
but um, we've got our own like assault helicopter battalions, aviation support battalions to do
Okay.
like all of your phase maintenance and stuff for those assault
Right.
helicopter battalions, for your medical units, all that kind of stuff, all your air cav support, basically.
Right.
Um, so I was in the aviation support battalion being a radio operator.
Okay.
So we got attached to, for instance, 1501, as aviation reconnaissance battalion. Now it's AHB, assault helicopter battalion. Um,
Okay.
uh,
So
so
were you on the ground or were you like, okay, so you're just on the ground. Are you like with the tanks calling in, like calling for helicopters, or how does that work?
so my job primarily, are you familiar with retrans at all?
Mm-mm.
Range extension and transmission.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you've got your unit here and your unit here, and you say you've got this mountain range that's right in between. So they
Right.
plant us with a helicopter right on top.
Nice.
Yeah.
All
Uh,
four of you by yourselves.
uh Or in this case, three.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were on, you know, weird rotating shifts.
Yeah.
But we got tasked out to all these units for a range extension. Um, every once and again, we would do, because we were basically just a relay station. So all we did was monitor radios and make sure that, you know, everything was in sync so that this unit over here can talk to this unit over here.
Yeah.
It can be pretty boring, but also it can be pretty great because you're
Yeah.
not necessarily having to get messed with by, you
Right.
know, all the higher ups and everything like
Seems
that,
like you're pretty far out by yourself.
usually.
So,
Um,
and also seems like extremely critical. Like it's boring because you're just kind of sitting there. But if that goes down, like imagine that, like you're in the middle of something big and all of a sudden you screw up because you're, incompetent or whatever. And it's like,
mhm,
oh, we can't transmit anything because our
right,
retrans station just fell over and doesn't work anymore.
right. So that was, I mean, that's like you said, it's a critical asset to have.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and the reason I say that is a lot of people look at their job and they're like, "Well, I wasn't a tanker, I wasn't an infantry guy, I wasn't a pilot," and they're like, "Oh, my job was just, like you said, it's kind of boring," and
mhm,
it can be boring. There's a lot of boring jobs in the military, but man, think about that. Like you've got division headquarters over here, and you've got like a tank battalion or an aviation battalion over here, some kind of asset, and like you
mhm,
said, there's a mountain range in between, and there's three of you on this mountain range, and I don't know that you'll ever have a position in life again where there's you and two other people that are completely relied upon for communication and the life sustaining connection between these two units. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
look at how big that is, and
Well, and
it's
yeah,
huge.
and that's kind of funny because we did a training exercise at Fort Irwin, um, in California, and there was a legitimate instance of we've got this entire aviation battalion and division that can't talk right now because there's literally a mountain range in
Hmm.
between. So it's like, okay, the top of this mountain range where we want to put you without silhouetting you isn't wide enough for the truck.
Hmm.
So what we're going to have you do is we're going to have you follow this utility path, if you want to call it. I mean, it was no wider than like a cart path.
Yeah.
Um, we've got a Humvee and a trailer
Yeah.
with a
So
generator on it.
you're gonna drive all the way up there on this
And that's
UTV path.
literally what we did is we drove up and I was the driver. So we drove up and got as high as we could and stopped, put that parking brake on, chocked all the wheels,
Yep.
and set up our retrans station.
Yep. And
And
imagine like if you were actually doing this, in a combat zone,
mhm.
imagine how much of a target you would be.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I mean, they see an antenna on top of a mountain or a hill or a building. Like that's absolutely first thing that's going. Like,
Yeah. Hey,
and that's
hey, drop bombs on that.
yeah, that right there needs to go away because they're doing something that we need to stop.
Right.
But that's, again, it's like, did you ever deploy and like
I did
do this?
not.
Like, okay. And
I
again,
had a
that's
couple
just my,
friends that did, but
yeah,
I didn't.
yeah. So did they ever get to do that in country? Do you know?
One of my buddies did um early on before he was on his PSD team. Um and he had explained like, you know, this is just what like you guys see it as like a boring slough off job, but this is why this is incredibly critical because you've got these like he's like we literally set up relay stations across the entirety of Afghanistan so that these guys over on one side of the country can literally talk to people on the other side
Mm-hmm.
with basic radios.
Yeah. Wow. And that's, again, that it's super important. I mean,
Hmm.
and it's absolutely critical because if one of those goes down, I mean, it's like
The
being
whole
the weak
network's
link in a
down.
chain. I mean, the whole chain's going to break and it's done until they get somebody else up there. So, but did that ever, was that ever an issue for you, like mentally, like not being able to deploy and do that? Or was that something that you didn't really think about?
Yeah. It became more prevalent after I got out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I admittedly I joined the army for all the wrong reasons. Um, but I'm thankful that I did join when I did and
Mm-hmm.
that I met all the people that I did. Um, I didn't really have a lot of self-worth to begin with just because of some of my childhood experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I joined with the thought of, well, I'll become important enough to these certain people that they'll actually care. And
Right.
it wasn't the case. Um, but so fast forward to, you hear that your unit's got a deployment coming up. And you're like, oh, yeah, like I'll actually be able to get to do my job where it really matters. And
Right.
then, you know, I was having some mental health issues as it was. One of my friends early on in my military career died by suicide. And then one of the guys I went to school with that was friends with me and my brother was killed at Fort Hood. So I was having some issues. So I was going to mental health at the time.
Yeah.
And just some of these other things were starting to develop, and I got placed on a non deployment status. So they're like, yeah, we have this coming up, but you're not going to be able to go.
Right.
Shatters. It's like, this is literally why I joined. This is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um, so, that definitely put a strain on it. And at that point I was like, all right, if I can't do that, I'm done with the army. Like,
Yeah.
what's the point? So I just continued to kind of spiral. I got really heavy into drinking. Um, and I mean, I drank every week, every day of the week. I drank during duty hours, went on benders on the weekends. Um, I just kind of started throwing my life away,
Right.
but I never got into any trouble, which, I don't really know how.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm glad that I did.
Yeah.
Um, so, a couple years later rolls around. Probably middle of 2017. I've been on a non-deployment status for long enough because of some of the medications that I was on to help with my mental health stuff. And I go in for an appointment and they're like, "Hey, we're recommending you for um, medical separation."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, what does that mean?" And I'm like, "Well, you're gonna go through the military evaluation boards. You're gonna be assigned a physical evaluator and a case manager, and this is basically how this process is gonna go." So that was almost a year-long process. Um, I ended up going TDY up to Fort Lewis at one point for a I actually had to sit in front of the board and explain my case and was granted 50%, uh, 30 Army, or not 30, 20 Army, and then 50% VA. So VA obviously takes the higher priority because
Right.
they're the higher rating of the two. Um, so I got out. Um, I was instructed that I was going to be getting out that April of 2018.
How long was that after the board to the time that you got out?
Probably about 6 months. Um, and Army has all of their transition assistance program,
Hmm.
um, like schooling. It's called,
Right.
at the time it was SFL TAP, and now it's
Yeah.
just TAP. Um,
Yeah.
and so I did that. Um, I did, I went through the whole like week long program for, uh, the transition assistance. They
Yeah.
taught me how to write a resume, but not very well. Um, it was just kind of a fly by the seat of your pants program. Um, of course, I'm down in Texas, so it's, more of the troops to truckers and
Yep.
go work on the oil rigs,
Oil fields and yep.
go build wind farms, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Um,
That's
Nothing
funny
that
that you say that you're in Texas doing that. I was in California and they were saying the same thing. I think it's just the standard like troops to truckers, troops to teachers, oil fields, wind farms, and then HVAC. And that was like that's about it. I mean, there's a couple of colleges that showed up and handed out some flyers and things. There's a couple of like security companies that like they handed out some flyers and stuff, but that was about it.
we had we had a couple kind of sketch uh like contracting companies that showed up, like
Yeah.
shooter jobs. um I think they were there.
Yeah.
um
That's their
and
name, shooter jobs.
their website is literally shooterjobs.com,
That sounds legit.
and it's for
Yeah.
contracting overseas for private
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
um
I've never heard of them. So if they ever hear this and they're mad at me for, I just, sorry, I've never heard of it. It just seems a little straightforward with the name.
um
Uh,
and I had pondered that a little bit at the time, but I was like, I don't really have the experience. I mean, I can shoot, I know what I'm doing with a weapon, but like, do I really want to do that?
yeah.
Um, so I'm glad I didn't take that path either. I didn't take any of that. Um, and I got out at my last day at Fort Bliss was April 7th of 2018.
Okay.
Um, and I was bitter and disgruntled, and I felt like I had gotten thrown away. Um, yeah, it was kind of a weird, surreal moment. Like I was ready to get out, but at the same time, I was super disgruntled, and you know, I had a very much screw the military attitude. Um, so I just wasn't really in a very good headspace. But between when I had started drinking and when I got out, I got sober. Um,
Yeah. Oh, good.
through
Yeah.
initially through an ultimatum, which was
Yeah.
actually my saving grace. Um, so I got sober 224 of 17.
Okay.
So, and I've been sober ever since. Uh,
Good. Congratulations. That's
yeah,
a very big achievement, especially after you get deep into it like that. It becomes such a crutch. You
right.
know, it's huge to be able to step away from it, especially during that hard time.
hmm And, I credit my mom a lot. Um, and my wife, my now wife, because they helped me through a lot of, that transition process. And, um, my wife for being that huge support through my early sobriety. Um, because, you have to be selfish.
Hmm.
And, it's like, I can't do these situations or go to these places. And, you know, like you said, going through that hardship of all that transition and dealing with some of those like traumas and everything, it just makes it that much more difficult.
Yeah.
And, I didn't deploy, but I dealt with my fair share of traumas from the military. I think everybody that serves in a military capacity or law enforcement capacity, whether you've, taken a life, deployed, saved a life, or if you've just had, you know, routine traffic stops your entire career.
Hmm.
Um, I don't think anybody comes out unscathed,
Yeah.
even a little bit, just
Yeah.
because of the way that your brain has to function and the way that your body has to function. So
Yeah.
that's
No,
kind of my perspective on it.
I agree. I think like there's a quote that I heard and I share it with people all the time because I think it's really accurate. People say, well, my trauma, I didn't experience enough to have trauma. And, the quote that I heard was, it doesn't matter if you're drowning in 20 feet of water or 2 feet of water. If you're drowning, you're drowning,
Mhm.
and you've got to get help. And it may be something small that you didn't realize affected you in that way. It may be something, that you didn't even realize affected you at all. And, when you start having these negative feelings, it's hard to pinpoint where that came from.
Right.
But that's why, I encourage people to talk to somebody who has the tools to help you dig into that and find it and pull it out and expose it. Um, I had an incident where we got a call. When I was a police officer, we got a call about an active shooter at the high school. And they said there's, multiple kids have been shot. He's barricaded in this room. So I was the first unit dispatched because I was the only one that wasn't on a call at the time. And, in my mind, uh, I went to a place that, not a lot of people have to go to. And, it was a place of I'm probably going to die today because I knew that I was going to, as we were trained, you're going to hit that door running and just run in there and try to, stop the killing as fast as we can. And that's
Mhm.
not to say that I'm some hero or anything else. That's just what the police officers now are trained to do is you don't wait, you go in and you stop the killing as fast as you can. And I had this, I kind of went to this pace mentally, like, where I was like, okay, well, this may be it. Let's go get it. And it turned out to be a spam call or a swatting call where nothing had happened. But this was just a couple months after Uvalde. So it was like
Oh yeah.
we were kind of all on alert for copycats or anybody, So when the call came in, I was like, oh, there it is, and we all, took off like a bat out of hell.
hmm
And, you know, that's not, again, nothing happened. I didn't see any dead kids, didn't get into a gunfight, nothing. But just going to that place mentally left a mark because I came home that day and I was just kind of sitting staring at the wall. And my wife was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. It was just this weird feeling of I was resigned to it and I was okay with it. And then coming back from it, it was like, you know, it was almost it was almost disappointing,
Yeah.
and that sounds so weird because I don't want to die. I don't want to get into a gunfight and get hurt and everything else. But it's like it was my heart and mind were made up that this was probably going to happen, and I was okay with it, and I resigned myself to it and was like, "Yep, it's fine. Let's go." And then it didn't happen, and it was kind of like, "Huh." Just coming back to reality after that, it was like it was weird. So I think there's people, they prepare for things like you prepared to go on these deployments and you prepare to go up on this mountaintop with two other guys in a completely exposed position with a giant antenna, sticking above your heads, which is just a giant target.
Right.
And you prepare mentally for that. And you're like, if we do this in a combat zone, in an active combat situation, like we're a huge target.
Yeah.
Um, and you have to prepare for that mentally. And just preparing for that mentally leaves a mark, and it takes a toll, in some way. And some it takes more of a toll than others. And, if you don't ever deploy, like I said, you come back, you come down from that. And it's kind of like, I never
It's
got
disappointing.
to, yeah, it's disappointing. I never got to do what I trained to do. And that's one of my biggest, things with people is just, and it's for myself as well. That's why I say it, is because I'm saying it to myself, but I'm saying it to everybody else too, is we did what we were asked. We played the hand we were dealt. Um, some people got to deploy, some people didn't. Some people saw combat, some people didn't. Some people saw hellacious combat, and some people didn't.
Right.
And everybody, it's just a luck of the draw. I mean, and that's not saying that like the guys that saw really bad combat are lucky. It's just you,
Those were their
you
cards.
gotta, yeah, you gotta play the hand you're dealt, and everybody's hand is different.
Right.
And I think, again, one of the hardest things that we have to learn to accept is we can't change the past. But if we continue to live there, we can't move on and we can't grow and we can't, live our lives. We're just surviving and reminiscing on the past, every day. And
Right.
that's not healthy and it's not helpful. But,
Right. And
sorry,
that
I didn't
eats
mean
you
to
alive.
hijack your story.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Cause like when you, and I'm guilty of it. So guilty of it. Of like wanting to live in the past and live in the what ifs and, you know, feeling like I didn't do enough. But, I've got I've got a really, really good friend now, um, that deployed and has shared some of his combat experiences with our friend group. And, we were sitting around a fire one night and he was talking about it and I was like, this is gonna like I realize that this sounds bad. It's like, but like I envy you because you had the experiences that I wanted to have. You got to have those combat bonds with people.
Hmm.
And, you know, he's like my service is no better than your service. He's like, I'm a combat veteran, but I'm still just a veteran.
Hmm.
He's like, you might not have the combat experience. He's like, and that's fine. He's like, because you did very much like you said, you did what you were asked to do
Hmm.
to the best of your ability. And then you had a set of experiences and you had to get out. He's like,
Hmm.
that's your story. That's your service. He's like, be proud of what you did, not,
Hmm.
you know, don't reminisce about what you could have done.
Right. And that's so
And
hard.
yeah,
It's so
and
hard. I mean, but it's like I've even talked to guys that I've even I haven't personally talked with Dakota Meyer, but I was listening to some stuff that he was saying, and he feels like he didn't do enough.
Mhm.
I mean, the dude saw combat. The dude has the Medal of Honor, and I mean, and I understand his, his feelings about not being able to save people, but he still feels like he didn't do enough during his time in service. I'm like, bro, you got the Medal of Honor. How can you feel that way? But I understand because it's like, you got guys that were in World War II and Vietnam and Korea and all these other places that they served and they served in different ways, and in ways that we would say, a lot of guys would say, are they did more.
Mhm.
And they still feel like they didn't do enough or they didn't do any more than anybody else.
Right.
So I think that's a universal feeling that we just kind of have to deal with, and we have to learn to accept, hey, we join when we join. We're born when we're born. We can't change that. We join when we join. If you joined, at 18 or 25 or 30 or whatever, that's what life had in store for you. And you can live in the past and you can live in the what ifs, or you're going to be miserable if you do.
Mhm.
And the only way to fix that is to move on and to accept, hey, I did what I did, and you know, this is what happened, and this is the experiences I got. Take the good, leave the bad, and move on. Which
Right.
is easier said than done, but we have to get to that point. That's the goal.
Right. Yeah. So, the transition out was definitely rough. Um, just because of all of those feelings and everything. And, you know, even even to this day, I still get caught up in those bad habits and everything of, you know, I take care of like my mental health to a certain point. And it's
Hmm.
usually when I feel really good. And it's like, oh well, I don't need to go to therapy anymore because I feel good.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
just because I'm talking about the things going on right now
Yeah.
isn't doing me any favors for the things that I haven't addressed from back then.
Right.
Um, and that it eats you alive. Like you said,
Hmm.
if you don't take care of it, and if you don't like watch those feelings and everything like that. Like we were talking about earlier, I listened to your podcast. And you know, when you were talking about something feels off, you know, I take medications for my issues with my mental health, and that's fine. I know a lot of people that do. Kudos to
Hmm.
those that don't have to. Like, I'm glad you found something that works for you,
Yep.
but I have to.
Hmm.
And I went through a period where it was probably the better part of a year of, you know, I did the ups and downs, but I knew something was off.
Hmm.
And I should have known better. I've done it before. Um and you know, you come to a point where you hit that rock bottom with it. And I had to go in and spend some time at the VA and, you know, get my meds readjusted and get on an actual schedule and learn how to like because when I started them, nobody told me how to take them properly.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that there were certain times of a day that you needed to take,
Right.
like an SSRI. Nobody told me that. They're just like, "Here,
Hmm.
take these."
Yep.
So, I just took them. I took everything at night. Well, it doesn't work that way.
Right.
Um, so getting balanced out, um, and, recognizing something's off and sitting back and, like, taking a step back and looking at my life and being like, "Hey, something's not right."
Right.
And having that conversation is crucial. So,
Yeah. And that's a huge, um, that's a really, really big, that's a big part of growing and healing, is having that self-awareness and that emotional intelligence to be able to say, I don't feel right. Like, I don't feel like, it's not that I'm like super off, but I something's wrong, and it's really good that you were able to recognize that, because that's not easy.
well, I recognized it long before, I just ignored it. And then everything boiled over and it was too late to try and like step back and fix it. But, it's like with with sobriety, you gotta you gotta watch that fine line of, hey, something's off with that today. Like what's going on, and
Mhm.
taking that daily inventory. And you know, I I've worked a 12-step program for the last 8 years and change. My Monday night meeting I go to every week unless I've got, something else going on. I go to
Mhm.
CR on Mondays.
Yeah,
And then,
I do too. Yeah.
I go to my other group on Tuesdays. Um, and I'm not gonna say the name because, that violates
Yeah.
the I don't want to shout them out for
Yeah.
conflict purposes.
Yeah.
Um, but it's my routine. I have to
Mhm.
maintain, my routine with all of that. And, that with maintaining that, also helps me maintain my schedule with my mental health and being able to watch, you know, what's going on with that.
Right.
So,
I think that's one thing that a lot of people miss from the military is the routine and the structure.
mhm,
And developing that for yourself after the military is a big key component of healing and growing and just being able to thrive, not just survive life and just, you're fighting to just live day to day, having that structure and that program for yourself set up is it's such a huge benefit and it really helps um, push you to a new level in your life, I think. So
mhm,
that's one thing that I've been trying to do and been pushing others to do is just you've got to get into a routine, whether that's, going to the gym, going to your, if you have a therapist and you're going to your therapy appointments and if you're going to church, just being consistent about that, and just whatever you're trying to establish is just be really consistent and fight for that, consistency.
right.
Because there's going to be times you don't want to go. There's going to be times that you don't feel like you need to go. And it's like, okay, it doesn't matter if you feel like you should or feel like you shouldn't. You just need to do it, you know. And so that's a big thing. And I'm glad it's working out for you as well because it's really helped me a lot is having that pattern and that consistency and that structure.
hmm Well, and that's a fairly recent thing for me is, really, really tapping into the self structure. Um, I'm not gonna say I'm the most organized person in the world because that'd be a lie.
Yeah,
But
right.
you know, uh, getting getting that daily structure, I recently lost one job and was looking for another job, and trying to maintain that structure in between getting a new like losing that job and getting a new job was huge. I mean,
Hmm.
and it really gave me a chance to, in that time where I was looking for a new job, to focus on, you know, taking care of the things that I needed to take care of for myself so that I could continue to thrive and not just survive. Um,
Hmm.
and, you know, I think, I think hands down, like seeing the difference between surviving to now like thriving is, it was like an epiphany moment.
Hmm.
Um, you know, because, you get out of the hospital. If you've ever been there, you are at your lowest when you check in. And then, they work with you and you do therapy and everything like that. And they teach you a little bit of how to look for the little things, no matter how minuscule, that make you happy, that make you smile.
Hmm.
And then when you discharge, you've got some of these little skills where, you can look at that and be like, that thing kind of sucked, but this thing over here was really good. So I'm gonna
Hmm.
pick that and set it on top of the tower, the figurative tower that's sitting in my lap. And we're gonna focus on that good thing. And just giving yourself the chance to take that step back and look at the little things. Like for me, it was, I'm a people watcher. So like
Hmm.
watching my wife play games on her phone or play Xbox and like watching her little smirks and stuff as she's playing her game or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it makes me smile, or the little chuckles when she's reading her books, or it's just those little things and being
Hmm.
kind of being in the moment. Um and you know refinding my my own purpose
Hmm.
for you know you like that's another struggle that I had getting out of the military, was I lost my sense of purpose.
Right.
So, I had always found it, but my purpose was always directly related to what I was doing for work.
Yeah.
And if I
Yep.
hated my job, I hated my life.
Well, what's the first thing you ask somebody when you meet them? You
What do
ask
you
their
do?
name.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yep.
What do you do for a living? And that's so of course we identify with it. I mean, that's basically, who you are to everybody else. Oh, he's a cop, or he's a lawyer, or he works at, in finance, or he's a CPA or whatever,
Hmm.
you know. And that's like the umbrella that we live under, is like, oh, that's what I do. Okay. So who are you though? It's like, and that's a much harder question to answer, and not one that I think is necessarily should be asked lightly of people. It's, it's not like you should walk up to someone and be like, who are you really? It's like, and I get that. But if we're not able to have somebody that we're able to have that conversation with at some point, we're cheating ourselves, because again, we just live under this, this kind of surface level thinking of who we are. And again, that's the first thing we ask. Well, what do you do? Well, again, you list off your job or whatever, and that's about it. So
Hmm.
it's something men and women have done, I mean, since forever.
Yeah.
And it's they ignore the deeper aspects of who you are really. And so that's something that I've been trying to, push past in my own life and help others to push past, is like, yes, that's what you do, but that's not who you are. And you've got to be able to answer both questions. Like, what do you do? Well, I'm a CPA, or I'm a lawyer. Okay, cool. And I think a better question would be like, what's your true purpose in life?
Hmm.
What do you want, or what do you find purpose in? And, if your purpose is, I like helping people, win trial cases, because, they're the little guy and I like helping them. That's, whatever, that's fine. But you've got to have something beyond just, I work at Walmart. And there's nothing wrong with working at Walmart. You got to pay the bills and you got to have a job. That's fine. But if that's all you're doing and you're just surviving by working at Walmart, you're not going to feel fulfillment. You could be a billionaire and have a multi-billion dollar company that helps people. But if you're not finding fulfillment in that, you know,
You're gonna be miserable.
yeah, you're going to be miserable. And that's, you're still just surviving.
Right.
And that's one thing I wanted to ask before we got into more of the loss of purpose, is what did surviving look like to you, like for you?
So basically, it was just, you know, my my survival routine was get up, go to work, go through the motions of work, um, come home, make dinner, watch TV, go to bed.
Yeah. Repeat.
Like, yeah, and
Yep.
rinse, rinse, dry, repeat.
Yep.
Um, and throw in there, uh, get chippy with everybody that I love, have an attitude for everything,
Yeah.
uh, lack of motivation for anything. I put on 40 pounds again in that time period. Um, a few months at the beginning of that year, I had made a big post on Facebook because I had dropped 80 pounds in the span of a year. And I
Wow.
was super proud of myself because,
Mhm.
I had let myself go and I quit working out and all that stuff. And I gained all this weight. And I wondered why I hurt all the time. Well,
Yeah.
it's because I let myself get fat and out of shape and I wasn't taking care of myself. So I put the work in, inside and outside of work, and I dropped 80 pounds.
Mhm.
And I felt great.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I got depressed again and I quit taking care of myself and I just got back into that survival mode and I put on 40 pounds like that. So, I was always looking for something to argue about, you know? And then, you get into it with whoever and then I get quiet. It's like,
Mhm.
well, what's the point of even having this conversation? Well, I don't want to say something that I don't mean, you know?
Yeah.
It, and it was always something petty over
Mhm.
something petty that didn't
It
matter.
usually is.
And I am the king of petty, let me tell you.
I agree. Yeah, there's a lot of pettiness that sneaks its way into my existence.
But, you know, it and I knew that I was in survival mode for a long time. But again, I got comfortable, I got complacent. I didn't necessarily like not that I didn't care, but
Mhm.
I didn't care enough
Yeah.
to try and fix it when I noticed it. And then survival, like, month to month, call it, um, transitioned into struggling to survive day to day, and then ultimately struggling to survive moment to moment.
Right. So after you were kind of in this survival mode for a while, is that when you went to the hospital?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question, because there's a lot, I get a lot of questions from people. They're like, well, will going to the hospital to get mental help, will that negatively affect me in the long run? Will I have a record? Will it be on my record? Will people be able to see that? Um, and as a police officer, I know that it's not public information,
Hmm.
for people that go to the hospital for mental health stuff. Like you can self-commit, you can call and be like, "Hey,
Hmm.
I'm going to kill myself today if someone doesn't come help me." And we would go pick them up and take them to the hospital. And it was, "Hey, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
get in the car, we'll take you." And it wasn't, they'd be sobbing and they'd be like, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my family. And I'm like, uh, the chances of that, it's not going to be because of anything the hospital does or anything we
Hmm.
do. If that happens, that's outside of our control, but we're
Right.
not going to report this to anybody. The hospital's not going to report to anyone. But that being said, what was that process like for you? Because I think there's a lot of people that you having experienced that
Hmm.
can kind of speak into, what that was like and how it affected you and the positives and maybe if there was any negatives to it.
Right. So I was a voluntary, um, and I was actually at work at the time. Um, I was in my workplace and I broke. Um, and where I was working at the time had chaplains. So I got a hold of my team lead and I was like, "Hey, I need big boss." So he's like, and he didn't ask any questions. Like he knew that something was off. Um, kudos to him for knowing me well enough by then. He went and he got big boss, and big boss is like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And I was like, "I think we need to have a discussion, me, you, and the chaplain." So we went into the management offices, and I was like, "I'm done. Like, I need help." So we called my wife. Um, Me and the chaplain did. Chaplain took me to the hospital. We met my wife there, and that started the process. Um, and I'm by the time we get into the hospital, I'm a heaping mess. I'm sobbing. My eyes are swollen and red. You know, I'm also mortified because I'm like, why did I let this get this bad? But nobody judged me at all. Everybody, the I had to get uh, I had to have somebody like come watch, even though my wife was with me. Um, sit outside the room and watch. They had to make sure that I ate all my food. You know, you got to go through all the motions,
Hmm.
but at the end of the day, everybody that I interacted with was like, thank you for coming in and giving us the opportunity to help you. I get transferred from the local hospital to the VA, and it's the same thing. You know, they, so my particular VA, the um, acute psychiatric ward is on the third floor. So they call it 3A for third
Hmm.
acute. Um, and, you go in the ER entrance, go up the elevators with your escort, and they've got they got to key you in and type in their little code, obviously, because it's a secure unit. Um, you process and they ask you all the questions to determine your risk status. Um, and then they give you like your scrubs, your grippy socks, because there's no shoes, nothing.
Hmm.
Um, and again, it's thank you for reaching out. Um, but it didn't impact anything I had with work. I was able to get up most workplaces if you have somebody that can call in and explain the situation, especially if you've been there long enough for FMLA, they'll get emergency FMLA put in so
Hmm.
that you don't have to worry about work.
Now,
Um,
the FMLA, that is the
Family Medical Leave
Family
Act.
Medical Leave Act. So that is I had to use that when my son was born prematurely. I did not have enough vacation days or sick days to be able to be there for my son. So
Sure.
the FMLA, and I'm explaining this because some people don't even know what it is. They've never had to use it. Um, and it's a big thing because it can really help someone. Like it seems like it helped you. Um, where I was working,
Hmm.
everybody put in they pay in some sick and vacation days, and it goes into a giant pool, and it's so anybody who has a situation like this, they can pull from that, and they can use those days that are donated by other people. It's also a federally mandated program that exists for these type of emergencies. So that is an option. If you have something like this, you can look into that so it doesn't affect your position at work based
Hmm.
on the amount of time that you've missed. So that being said, the FMLA is a big tool that goes unused because a lot of people don't know about it. So,
Right.
but anyway, please, continue. I just wanted to throw that in there.
So I had all that set up before um, I even got to my VA location. Um, and I spent a week up there, um, just getting back into my right headspace, doing all the therapies and talking with their chaplains and getting all my meds sorted out and getting on an actual schedule and them teaching me about what am I taking and what is it supposed to do, like how does it the difference and how does it make me feel right now, and am I okay with that, or basically they're looking for any adverse effects.
Hmm.
um and so I went through all of that, but the only thing that it did differently for me, which also wasn't a big deal, was they put you on, I wouldn't even call it a red flag status. Um, it's just a high risk alert. that they put you on for 90 days because you were in an acute psychiatric wing for
Okay.
whatever. So you're on
Right.
like a 90-day watch, so they know, because they checked in with me variously at various times throughout that 3-month process. Um, and
Are you okay? Sorry, we had
uh,
a little glitch there, but
yeah, so they checked in with me at various points through that 3-month window.
who was checking in with you? Was it the hospital
Yeah, different,
or the VA?
yeah, different VA providers that worked in that wing. Um, Check in, hey, how you doing? How you feeling? Anything different? Anything weird? Anything we need to let your doctor know about? I didn't have any of that. Um, and then after 90 days, they lift that flag.
Okay, and that's
Um,
from the VA.
yeah,
Okay,
didn't affect my job. Um, my transition out of my job was solely my own doing. Um, but yeah, it didn't affect my job in the slightest. Um, and I've talked with several of my close friends, and they know what happened with my hospital stay and everything like that. And again, even in that dynamic, zero judgment. It was all hugs, and I'm glad that you made the choice to go get help.
yeah,
So I strongly urge anybody that's going through it, that is struggling moment to moment, that's not sure if they should reach out and get help, even if you're listening like right now, seek that help. Um, you know, don't be afraid to call that crisis line, because what they're going to do, especially if you call 988, what they're going to do is they're going to answer that phone. You're going to tell them what's going on. And if you're a vet, they're going to reach out to your local VA, and they're going to get you in contact with somebody. They'll probably have you come in, they'll evaluate you. And then I'm at my local VA is rural. So what they would do in that instance is they're going to send, and if you want to do a stay at the VA,
mm-hmm.
at that point, you're probably going to have to do at least 72 hours just so they can evaluate you anyway. Um, Even if that's all you want to do, I highly recommend that if that's what you need.
Yeah,
Um, they're going to send a sterile car. So it's going to have, a plexiglass separator between you and the driver just for the driver's safety. And then they're going to escort you into your big VA location that has the um, resources necessary to help you.
right. The facilities and the people
Right.
and the resources. Yeah,
Right. And they're going to help you help yourself.
yeah, yeah. And that's, I think, one thing that people are concerned about is like, well, I'm going to get transported there, and it's it's going to look bad and all this other stuff. I mean, we have to understand they have to protect themselves as well. That plexiglass protector is there, because they're trying to help. They're doing the right thing. But some of the people that have been transported have become violent, and they
Right.
have, gone completely off the rails because they are schizophrenic, or they are,
Off their
hearing,
meds.
yeah, and they're hearing voices telling them to do the most insane, crazy things. And that plexiglass protector is not there for 99% of people.
Right.
It's there for that 1% that they can't predict what's going to happen with them. And, in the 90-day, status, high risk status, flag that they put on somebody, that's because and this is from stuff that I've read and people that I've listened to, the most dangerous time for someone who is suicidal is right after they leave the hospital. That is when someone is either going to hurt themselves or kill themselves, or they're not. And that's statistically proven. That is the most dangerous time. And if they don't follow up, can come back on them. And two, it's unethical because they know now we know in the medical field, in the mental health field, in the psychiatric field, we know that is the most volatile time in somebody's life. And if, it's unethical, if they don't follow up, that's it, they're failing.
Yep.
So that status of high risk, it's not anything, that's like they're not going to come take your guns away. They're not going to come, break into your house and check on you. They know that is when people are at the highest risk and they have to check on you and make sure that you're doing okay. So, but I mean, I know reliving all that and telling that is hard, and I really appreciate your honesty. And I know there's people that are going to benefit from that because, that's something that I haven't dealt with. I haven't been admitted to a hospital. I probably should have been at some point, but me being stubborn, I didn't even do it when I should have. Um, and I wish that I would have. I think it would have been better had I done it that way. Um, but I know there's people that are, going to be listening to this and people that are just sitting there thinking like, I don't even know how to live at this point. Because there's people that I talk to, they send me messages and they're like, I don't even know what better looks like, and I don't even know because they've been in survival mode for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and that's, hearing that from you and explaining how beneficial it was is really powerful and really important. Um, so what did it look like after you left the hospital and you got back home? Like what was I know you said that, so you had like the survival phase, kind of the crash out where you had to go to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
then the hospital stay. What was it like after that?
So I came home after my week up there, and you know, that's the time where a lot of people will have those hard conversations of this is what our new normal looks like. And it's a harsh reality. It's a tough pill to swallow. Um, you know, it, it was it was a bit of a shock for me because um, in that moment I wasn't thinking about the repercussions of, you know, what's my wife gonna do? What's my family gonna do? Because they're gonna have to deal with all this if I go through with this. And when you're stuck in that moment, you don't ever think about that at all. It's always
Yeah.
after. So it was some of that harsh reality, but those conversations have to be had. Um, and talking about this is getting easier and it's helping me heal with all of this. The more that I talk about it, because I want to help other people that are in the same position that I was in. Um, but you have to have those conversations with, if you're married, if you're married, if you have a girlfriend that you live with, or boyfriend, or partner, you know, whoever, um, you need to have those conversations. It's going to be really uncomfortable, but they're critical because then you're going to understand what their expectations are from you and what the new just the whole situation is. Um, and the whole reality and scope of all of it. Could happen the same day, could happen a week down the road, but it's going to happen eventually. They're going to want to have that conversation. Um, for me, that conversation was had over the next couple days, and it was uncomfortable. Uh, some tears were shed on both sides, and that's okay. Um, and then it was, you know, getting into therapy twice a week and working on things and okay, well, what are my goals? And what does this timeline look like for my goals? What's a reasonable timeline to see some of that shift? Um, mine, my goal was see a shift by the end of the summer. that was just that was a reasonable goal for me. Um, and I do the therapy twice. I did the therapy twice a week. I've since been able to do weekly therapy, and then once a month, just because of scheduling purposes with my VA provider.
Hmm.
Digging, I've got one uh, through BetterHelp for the nitty gritty, uh, day in, day out aggravations, and then my military trauma stuff, and talking about that with my VA provider. So doing that and keeping up on that and holding up on that end of the bargain, um, and working on coping skills, not having to have the last word. Um, you know, Now that I'm doing okay, being able to be less selfish and be there for my wife, um, and be a little bit more self-sufficient, make more decisions for myself instead of relying on her to make all my decisions, uh, and just kind of changing that dynamic.
Hmm.
Um, just showing that growth of this is where I was, this is where I want to be. Where do I fall in between those two? Um, and I got good feedback of, you know, we've seen good growth and good change and just keeping up on that. And also having the conversation of, I've seen your growth and I wanted to tell you what I've seen so you're not discouraged and you don't feel like you're sitting stagnant. Um and to be encouraging. So that's also crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big thing, especially, in whatever you're doing, whether it's going to the gym or if it's, mental health or working towards a goal, getting better at something, having somebody stand there and say, "Hey, I've seen the improvement. I've seen good things." That's huge. Just and even if you're, like I've had people message me and say, "Hey, I've seen, you know, improvement in the happiness in the videos that you've posted and just the kind of less gloomy stuff." Because at one point I was posting a bunch of stuff that was just kind of not really dark, but it was darker than other stuff.
Mhm.
And this guy, commented, he's like, "Man, I've seen a lot of improvement in the mood you're portraying in your videos and things." Is I just want to let you know, like, that's encouraging to me. So it's even if you don't know somebody really well, if you've seen a change in someone, tell them,
Yeah.
encourage them. You don't know how much of an impact that can have on somebody. Just say, "Hey, man, I saw you a couple weeks ago and you seemed really down. And I don't know what you've been doing, but you seem like you're in a better spot now. So just wanted to tell you that." And that's not, it doesn't have to be wishy washy. It doesn't have to be all sad and, deep and whatever. It just tell them, "Hey, you seem like you've been doing a lot better lately. I just wanted you to
Mhm.
know that. So whatever you're doing, keep it up." And that's, you don't know how much of a positive impact that can have on somebody. Yeah. So
Yeah.
we've gone through, just kind of, surviving and then getting back into, thriving and things. What's something that has helped you with your, like, refinding that purpose that or, kind of finding it, even just finding it for the first time?
Um, you know, I am involved.
Or do you feel like you have found it? Because some people are still looking for it, and that's okay. I mean, my purpose is evolving and changing, kind of, kind of not every day, but, pretty regularly.
Right. Mine definitely evolves, um, month to month, sometimes day to day. I'm involved with a lot of veterans organizations. Um, one of the two big ones that I do are, uh, one of them's here in Iowa. It's Ruck, Iowa. And then Grunt Style Foundation um, took over Irreverent Warriors,
Hmm.
and I'm involved with that. Um, so that's also helped a lot, just getting involved with other veterans, and sharing experiences during these events and having those some of those hard conversations, but also, you know, having a place to quote unquote smoke and joke. Um,
Yeah.
but also just kind of the biggest thing for me outside of that has been trying to find the beauty in every day. I make it a point to because I get up to go to work at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, you gotta find something beautiful because 3 o'clock in the morning is a miserable time.
right. Um, but I take time to meditate on my way to work on my drive. I sit in silence on my drive to work and meditate and prepare myself for the day. Um, and I go through my day and because I'm still fairly new at my job, I'm looking at what can I learn today?
Hmm.
No matter how small, what can I learn from one of these guys that I work with or from my boss who started from the bottom and is now, you know, in management. Um, what's something positive that I can learn from them? Or, hey, you know, I know for a fact that this way isn't going to work, and being able to like take that advice and kind of run with it. So, I guess you could say my evolving purpose is stepping back and finding a learning experience and recognizing the beauty in today, um, and being excited for what tomorrow can bring.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a very overlooked uh a very overlooked skill is to be able to step back and just kind of like, okay, today I may not be exactly where I want to be. I may not be doing exactly what I want to do, but what can I learn and what beauty can I find in where I am?
Mhm.
And that's, the ability to do that is a huge step in growing and becoming the person that we ultimately, want to be. So that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good way to put it and a really good outlook.
I've got my shout out to my therapist here. Um, she says this thing, and it's don't should on yourself. Uh,
I like that.
so instead of looking at, well, this is the way the day should go,
Hmm.
it's the day's going to go the way it goes. But it's definitely your attitude and your perspective on it. Um, I now don't look at I have to go to work at 3:30 in the morning. I get to go to work at 3:30 in the morning. Like, because I made the choice to get help, like, I get to go to work at 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, I get to work 11-hour days. I get to come home and make dinner for, you know, my family and, sit on the couch and watch TV. It's changing that perspective from, well, I have to I get to.
Right. That's a huge shift. It's hard to get to that point because we
Mhm.
we want to should our way through life and we want to, you know, it should go this way and I should feel this way or I should get to do this. I should have this. I should have that. And I think, oh, I know, gratitude and just being grateful for what we have is such a massive benefit. And it's a huge step, in healing is just being content, being grateful for what you have and where you're at. And then starting from there to, okay, this isn't where I want to stay, but I'm grateful for what I have and where I've come. Now, what do I need to do to take the steps to go to where I want to go? And that's it's huge. Being able to do that day in and day out, is a very, very good place to start improving and getting to where you want to be. And, if it's a job that you want to work towards, if it's a degree you want to work towards, if it's a place you want to move to or whatever, starting right where you're at and saying,
Hmm.
okay, this isn't where I want to stay, but this is where I'm at. How am I going to make the best of this? And, how am I going to make this a beautiful place and a launching point into the next phase of my life? So, but I think you have a really, really good platform to start from. So, and your story is definitely one that could help a lot of people. And I'm super glad you came on here to share it.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and honestly, I feel like there's probably more we could talk about. So maybe, if you want to come back on later on, we come back on and discuss some other stuff and, kind of just get it out there because I think there's more. I think you have a lot more to offer. I think having you on again would be definitely be a benefit. So
I'd be
we'll have
honored.
to get it set up. Yeah. We'll have you back on again sometime. So I
Awesome.
really appreciate you coming on and, so everybody, again, this was Ethan Beck, again, 4-year Army veteran, and he's been very open and honest with us today. And, I know that I really appreciate it, and I know others will as well. So just wanted to again say thank you, and we'll have you back on again.
Awesome.
So, all right, thanks.
Thanks.
Hey guys, quick reminder, if you enjoyed the episode today, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, go to whatever platform you listen to these podcasts on and leave a review. That's the best way to help us out. It gets a lot more traffic to us. So, again, if you liked it, like, subscribe, and leave a review. All right. Love you guys.